Hey everybody! Well, everyone seemed to like when I went over grocery prices and the comparison of US to Mexico grocery prices. So I decided to do kind of a general cost of living in Mexico, and that's what we're going to do today. We're Douglas and Esperanza, and we decided to leave our lives in the US and move to magical Loreto, Mexico, where we built our boutique resort Pufferfishvillas from the ground up and work running it and saving to expand in the future. Please come with us to follow our journey and live before you die. I made another spreadsheet. I've got all the information on here, and let me up front because I had a lot of comments on my previous video. So this is going to be comparing where we live now, Loreto, Mexico in Baja California Sur, and comparing that to where we lived before we came here, which is Vista, California. And I know a lot of people are going to say that Vista, California is an expensive place to live. You know, on the last video, people said, oh, I live in Missouri and, you know, the prices are really high compared to here. Absolutely. There are places in the United States that are probably way, way cheaper to live than living anywhere in Mexico. And so there's no way to say that the cost of living in Mexico is going to be cheaper than wherever you live. But the majority of the people that come to Baja, I would say a vast majority of the people down here in Loreto and in Baja California Sur are either from the West Coast of the US, Oregon, Washington, and California, or they're from Canada. And so there are other people from other places. We do get many Arizonans down here also, but the primary is probably the majority is Southern California. So that's the type of environment that these people are coming from. Oregon, California, and Washington are all fairly similar for the big cities for pricing. I lived in Portland. I lived in south of Portland in many of the suburbs, and then I lived in San Diego, and the prices were pretty much the same in both places. So we are going to compare to that because that's what I know. I have actual prices from when I lived there, and I've looked up all the current prices. We're going to go over basically all the costs that we had when we lived in California, and then compare those to the costs we have now living in Mexico. So let's get right to it, and then we'll do a little discussion at the end about how our living conditions actually compare. Do we feel like it's comparable where we live? Because we're living in a garage in back of me that you see where we built a house in our garage. So it's not exactly the same, but I'm going to talk about what our costs would be when we build our house and how that is going to affect these costs. And it doesn't affect it much. So you're going to want to wait to the end to see that. So the first thing we'll talk about is mortgage. It is very difficult outside of a few select areas in Mexico for Americans or Canadians to get a mortgage. You can get a mortgage in Cabo and I believe a few other areas now, but it's very limited. Most people from the US and Canada still buy property here with cash. So in the US, we had a mortgage of $2,240. We didn't have a big house. We had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house, basically, in Vista, which is Southern California in the San Diego area. Here, zero. So we don't pay anything for a mortgage because we own everything here outright. What we do have down here that we didn't have in the US is a corporation administration fees. So because we are in the exclusion zone, which is the zone where you're within either 100 kilometers of the border or 50 kilometers of any of the coasts, which we are only about 600 feet from the coast. So we're definitely in the exclusion zone. We cannot directly buy the property and get our names, direct names on the title. And so there's two ways to do that. I've discussed this before. We went with a corporation. So we formed a corporation. Corporation buys the property. It's basically an LLC in Mexico. The LLC buys the property. We own the LLC 100%. So indirectly, we own the property 100%. And that LLC has to file taxes quarterly. It has to do other filings with the Mexican IRS, which is called SAT. So we have a fees, comes to about $27 a month to administer our corporation. Now, our corporation also runs all of our business through it. It runs our rentals through it, and it can own multiple properties. So you could use the same LLC to buy properties all over the place. The next line item is a big one, property taxes. In the US, we were paying $752 a month for property taxes. Here in Mexico, we pay about $10 a month for this section of our property where our house is for property taxes. Now, there is about another $10 a month we pay for the pufferfishvillas portion of the property. So total, we pay about $240 a year. But I was trying to split it out because most people aren't going to have a business and a whole rental little resort they're running. So $10 a month. So there's a huge savings in property taxes here in Mexico. Homeowners insurance. In the US, homeowners insurance is about $460 a month. Crazy. Here, they don't do insurance. Almost all Mexicans do not have homeowners insurance. We don't have homeowners insurance. You know, the buildings are built out of concrete roof, concrete walls, concrete floors. So they do have windows and doors. A lot of the doors are steel. So the main thing that you would be worrying about is fire damage. Yes, fire could damage the contents, but it's unlikely that fire is going to do any real damage to your house. Now, you also could be worried about earthquake and hurricane here. We get both those. You know, it's just kind of a thing that I do not feel, for me, it's worth it to pay an incredible amount of money every month in the hopes that when something happens, you're going to be able to get that back. It's cheap to build here in Mexico, and if something happened big like that, I would just rebuild with my own money and basically self-insure, use my own savings that I have saved to rebuild. So we don't use insurance. All right, next on the list, electricity. So now we're gonna get into the actual utilities, and these are big savings also. So electricity, in the US, we were paying about $200 a month for electricity. And this is kind of average during the summer. This is the highest use electricity there and here was during the summer. Here we pay $16 a month. The last month that we have, which was running air conditioning 24/7 every single day. So I also got the rates for San Diego Gas and Electric, and I used the lowest rate I could find. There's a whole bunch of plans with that. I used the direct plan, not time of use. So it's just a tiered plan, and I used the lowest tier, which this would probably go into the middle tier also, but I used the lowest tier that there is there for electricity. So electricity is measured in kilowatt hours in both places. That makes it super easy. Here we pay 4.3 cents per kilowatt hour in Mexico. In San Diego, it's 40.4 cents per kilowatt hour on the cheapest, lowest tier. They have tiers that go almost $1 a kilowatt hour in San Diego. So it can get crazy expensive there. This is 40 cents a kilowatt hour. So the electricity that we used in August here would have cost us $203 in San Diego. It actually would have cost us a lot more, but we're going with the most conservative thing. So $16 compared to $203 for electricity. Water. So when we were in the US, we paid about $85 a month for water. We are paying about $30 a month to water here. I went and looked up with the water rates where we lived in Vista, and that amount of water would have cost us $100 in Vista approximately. So we are actually paying about a third of what it would cost us in the US for our water. Now, gas. In Vista, we had natural gas, and I'm using a figure that is an average figure over a whole year because you don't use pretty much any natural gas or hardly any natural gas in the summer. You know, I think we were using like $8 or $7 in the summer because it's just to keep the water heater hot and cook some things. Of course, in the winter, you use a lot of natural gas because you have to heat. So, and we heated by natural gas. So 35 is kind of average. Here, we use about $23 of propane a month. And I tried to convert that into natural gas. I think it would cost about $15 for that much natural gas in the US. So it's actually a little bit cheaper in the US on the gas at $15 for the month. Other utilities we have here, garbage. $30 a month in the US for garbage. Here, it's free. It's included with the water bill. Sewer is also included on the water bill here. Usually it is in the US. It wasn't our US also. Cell phone, next one on the list. In the US, we were paying $173 a month for 2 cell phone plans. Here, we have the exact same plan, unlimited data, unlimited talk and text. We also have included in our plan unlimited data and talk and text in Mexico and Canada. So we can travel seamlessly up and back and forth, use this cell phone, and it works. $10 a month here per phone, so $20 compared to $173 in the US. Cell phones service is very inexpensive in Mexico. Internet, we were paying $150 a month in the US for internet. I think we had through our cable service there, Cox Cable. Here we are paying $46 a month for Starlink. Starlink is very inexpensive in Mexico. Now there is the cost of buying the upfront equipment. I think that's about $450, but it is way less expensive in Mexico to have Starlink, a service, and they actually lowered it like $5 at the beginning of this year. So it actually went down. Streaming TV services. We pretty much have our same streaming TV services we had in the US. So we end up paying $125 a month for streaming services. That's kind of our entertainment budget. Same there and here, all the same. All right, earthquake insurance. We had earthquake insurance in California. It was $25 a month. We don't have any insurance here, so $0. Next on the list is car payments. When we were in the US, we had 2 cars, and one of them was paid off, but the other one, we had a $590 a month payment. Here we have kind of 2.5 cars because we have our Rhino, which we drive around town sometimes, but I don't like to take it out. But we have our Moke, which is our in-town car, and then we have our 4Runner, which is our out-of-town car, or sometimes in-town car, but mostly for use to go out of town and when you're going long distances. We don't have any payments. We own all of our vehicles here, so 0 payments here as opposed to $590. Now that's kind of not apples to apples, because if we still had a car payment here, we would, but I just put that on there because it's on my list of our costs to live here. Car insurance. In the US, we are paying $200 a month to insure 2 vehicles, a 4Runner and a Mustang. Here, we are just insuring the 4Runner, but we are insuring it for full coverage and everything, including towing to the US and repair in the US if it gets damaged, because the repairs in Mexico on vehicles can be very not good, and especially on newer, more modern vehicles. There's a lot of people that can't work on them. There's a lot of stuff they can't do down here. So it pays to pay for an insurance where they'll tow it back up. They'll put it on a truck, take it up to the U.S. and repair it up there. $200 a month in the U.S. We pay $53 a month here for one vehicle for that full coverage insurance. Car fuel. In the U.S., we were paying about $150 a month for gas. A lot of that was because I had to drive to work and driving all around long distances to get anything done. Here, anywhere you want to drive is within 5 minutes driving distance. And we don't really drive the 4Runner anyways. We've been back here for about 3.5 months. We had a half a tank of gas when we got back, and I've only used about a quarter of a tank since we got back. So in 3.5 months, I've used a quarter tank of gas in the 4Runner. That's how much we drive it, almost nothing. So, but we do drive it once in a while, and we do take some trips out of town once in a while. So I put in $10 a month for gasoline. That'd give us basically 2 tanks a year. I don't think we'll use 2 tanks a year of gasoline in the car because we use our electric moke, but put it in there anyways. Oh, by the way, the electric moke charging is included in the electric bill that I told you, $16 a month. So that's already taken care of out of there. All right. Next is car tags. So paying for your tags on your car, because the moke doesn't have anything. It's a low-speed vehicle. They don't license those here. The 4Runner is licensed right now in Oregon. It will be licensed in South Dakota once we switch it over. And the tags are going to cost about let me look. Car tags are about $10 a month. Yeah, about $120 a year for car tags. In the U.S., we were paying about $45 a month for car tags in California. It's very expensive to get your license plates in California. All right, health insurance. So this is another big one that could still be big for some people. We are very healthy. We have been more healthy since we came down here. And so we do not have any health insurance. Health care here is very inexpensive. A lot of expats do not have health insurance. They just pay as they go. Emergency care and anything like that is covered. And then if you need something else done, it's very inexpensive. If you needed a big surgery, it is still going to cost some money. And so that's something you have to consider. In the U.S., we were paying $750 a month for health care, and that was through my employer. If we were there now, it would be way, way more than that. For 2 people in our age range, 53 years old, it would be more than that. Here, for the 2 years we've been here, I'm being very generous. $25 a month is what we spend on health care. I don't think it's anywhere near that, but I tried to be very generous for how much we spend on health care here. Are we rolling the dice because something big happened and a huge thing and it could cost us a lot of money? Yes, but for us, the risk is worth it, and not to have that huge expense, and we're very healthy. We rarely go to the doctor anymore. So at least for now, we're very happy just going with the free healthcare and the low-cost healthcare here in Mexico. Food. In the U.S., we were paying about $600 a month. Now, this is food for the house, food that we make here at home. We make most of our meals at home. Usually we go out once a week maybe for dinner and a date night. So most of our food is made at home. $600 a month in the U.S., about $400 a month here. It's about 30% less here in Mexico overall for groceries, which I proved in our last video. For drinking water, we were getting the 5-gallon jugs in San Diego, $24 for 3 jugs. And that's about what we use in a week. Here we use the same, about 3 jugs in a week. They are $2 here for 3 jugs of water. So big savings on drinking water in Mexico. Household expenses. So this is just all the stuff around the house, cleaners and just everything else except food that you would buy and use in your house. All the crud you buy on Amazon, all that junk. In the US, we had a bad habit. We bought so much crap. We bought stuff on Amazon. We bought useless crap that we never used. I mean, and it's bad, but a lot of people end up doing this and buying just a lot of junk that they don't need and they don't use and costs a lot of money. We spend about $1,000 a month on household stuff in the US. Here in Mexico, it's probably about $200 a month. And a lot of that's because we don't feel like we need that anymore. Next would be eating out. Now, like I said, we eat out probably 4 times or 5 times, maybe 4 to 6 times a month total. In the US, that would cost us about $450 to go out 4 times a month. Here, we probably go out a few more times than we did there, so maybe 6 times a month. And I'm putting it at about $500. I don't think it's that much, but I want to be very generous, and I don't want to say, you can definitely spend as much here going out as you could in the US. Generally, it's quite a bit less, especially if you're talking about alcoholic beverages, because they're about half price here that they are in the US. But I'm going to give it the $500, so it's actually cheaper in the US to eat out, according to my budget, because I want to be very conservative here. All right, fast food. We used to get fast food a couple times a week in the US, 1 or 2 times a week. Here, there is no fast food, so $100 in the US, 0 here. Uber. So anytime we went out in the US, if we were going to be drinking any alcohol, we just Ubered. It was way easier, and we aren't going to have the problem of driving while you've been drinking. Uber cost us about at least $100 a month. I have $100 a month in here. I think it's way more than that because it would usually cost $20 to $30 every time we went in an Uber, but I've got $100 a month. Here, there is no Uber. It's $0 a month. We walk. So we're close enough to town now. That was one of our main criteria for finding this place, that we could walk to town, walk back, so we don't got to worry about it. We can go into town, have date night, have a few drinks, and then walk home, and you don't have to worry about it. All right, those are all the main expenses that we have, and I kind of went through everything. This is really a pretty comprehensive list of everything that we pay every month. Now, it doesn't include crazy stuff that comes up. It doesn't include traveling back to the US, but for us, that's a vacation. So that kind of takes the places of our vacations we had before. Those aren't in this budget at all, so it doesn't really apply. In the US, with all of those costs, that equals $8,284 a month. Here, and this is actually what we spend month over month. I've gone back several months and looked, and most of them are less than this, $1,488. So it's a huge difference. Basically, we were spending 5 times as much in the US. Now, a couple of those items are items that we don't have down here. One of them is a mortgage, and that is because the property cost is less here. So we were able to cash out our house in Southern California, use that cash, buy this property outright with no mortgage. So we are still using the same funds, but because of the property cost being less here, we're able to basically use the equity we had in the US was enough to buy this whole property outright. So that is an expense that I think is fair to keep in the comparison. The other thing is healthcare and maybe insurance, but I think most people don't have insurance here, so that's a pretty comparable. That's just the way they do it here. Healthcare is the other big thing. And, a lot of people aren't going to feel comfortable having just paying healthcare out of their pocket. I think as longer people are in Mexico, they start to go that way because they find that, that the costs really aren't that much. But everybody has to decide for themselves. If you took that out, that would be $750 out of the budget, and you'd be at like let's call it $7,500 a month compared to $1,500 a month. So that gives you the comparison. All right, so it is true that you can live on $1,500 a month in Mexico and have a great standard of living. So now that we have the numbers out of the way, I can hear the comments right now. But you lived in a nice house in the U.S. It was not luxury by any means. Literally, we lived in a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house. Yes, we fixed it up really nice and we put in a pool, but I don't have any of the pool expenses in this spreadsheet because I was trying to compare comparable things, and a pool costs similar down here to what it does up there to maintain. It's a little less down here, but it's similar. So I just didn't even put that in there. And down here, we live in a temporary house inside of our garage. And it is only about 600 square feet compared to 1,600 square feet that we lived in the U.S. So is that really comparable? Does living in a 600 square foot garage house or a hidden bungalow compare to living in a nicely remodeled 1960s ranch house in Southern California? For me, I'm going to say yes. So I try to compare it on how I feel about living here and how I felt about living there. I'm way happier here. I'm way less stressed here. And I don't feel ever like I'm penned in this little house. Now, when we lived in the trailer over there, which is only 210 square feet, I did feel a little tight, because it was just really tight in there. 600 square feet behind me, I'm totally fine in that. I could live in 600 square feet for the rest of my life. Let's go ask Esperanza what she thinks about living in the hidden bungalow in the garage and how she compares it to where we lived before. Well, Esperanza just came out because she was listening to me from inside the hidden bungalow. And so she's going to sit down right here and tell you her thoughts on this whole situation. Here, pull up here tight. Oh man, you're gonna hit the camera and knock it off.
Oopsie daisy.
All right, so we've been talking about cost of living. Mm-hmm. I described that I think for me, living in our hidden bungalow in our garage is comparable to the house we had in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel? I don't want to put any words in your mouth, so tell us how you feel.
We had an amazing house. We made the house in San Diego exactly what we wanted. And we made it was one level. We made a shower that you can roll a wheelchair into. We planned to be there forever. That was our plan. And so we made everything exactly like we wanted. And I love that house. But being here, we're living in a trailer, and so we got our garage house built, and oh my gosh, it's so much better than being in a trailer. The garage house, it's crazy because once you're somewhere for so long, it just becomes your everyday normal, and you just don't even notice or think I'm in a garage. We laugh about it, but it's not, we really don't care. It's just, it has everything. It has washer and dryer, dishwasher, stove, a real bathroom, a bedroom, a couch, TV.
So do you feel like it's too small? Do you feel like you're cramped? It's too small?
No. It's actually, for us, it's perfect. It's not big enough we can't have people over and entertain inside. But we have this beautiful outside area that we use, and it's beautiful most of the year.
Yeah.
So
and the other thing is that both Esperanza and I have lived in all kinds of different situations. I was homeless, living in a garage with a blue tarp over me at night when I slept because it rained through the roof at one time. Living in an old, broken down, dilapidated garage. Both of our first houses that we lived in were around 600 or 700 square feet.
Yep.
So we both have lived in this kind of situation before, and we both have lived in bigger houses. I built at one point in my life, I had a 3,700 square foot house that I built on 20 acres, and I didn't like it. It was way too big. I never felt like it was homey or it was comfortable. It felt like I lived in this big vacant building. And then you wanted to comment on a couple of the other items on our budget.
Yes, I was eavesdropping while Douglas here was telling you all this info, but the one thing is that a lot of people here are retired, and so they still have their insurance through Social Security, Medicare, things like that in the U.S.
And I just wanted to note, you cannot use base Medicare in Mexico, but there are some of the Medicare Advantage plans and other add-on plans that will cover you for what they call emergency use out of the country, which would include in Mexico. Now, what emergency use means may differ depending on where you go, but there are people that use those Advantage plans and other plans, and they use them down here in Mexico under emergency use. But you could always, if you have those plans, check with them to see if you are in Mexico and you had an emergency, a heart attack or a stroke or some other major thing, what do they cover down here? Will they cover it? Will they cover to bring you back to the U.S.? You might already be covered for emergency down here. In closing, you might say, well, I'm not going to go to Mexico and live in a garage, okay? I want a real house if I go to Mexico. I mean, not everybody wants to live in a garage in Mexico.
Why?
I don't know because we love it. But anyways, so I went and looked at the budget and I said, what would change on that budget if we build a house? Which we do plan to build a house. I call this temporary because we plan to build a house. We want to build another house similar to we had in California, probably a 3-bedroom, 1,700 square foot house that then will have 2 guest rooms and an extra bathroom for guests when they come over. So we probably will build that at some point. If we built that house and we were in that house, how would our bills change? Almost nothing would change. If you look at all of those bills, really the only bill that it's going to change is the property tax, which is already super low. So even if that went up doubled over what it is now, it's $20 a month instead of $10 a month. The other thing that would change is electricity for air conditioning.
Yes.
Because here you don't worry about heat really. I mean, people do use some heat, but it's so little amount in the winter. Maybe 10 nights a year you're going to turn on a heater for a couple hours in the evening, so it's pretty minimal. Air conditioning is a huge expense here because it gets very hot for 4 or 5 months out of the year, and you're going to be running air conditioning almost 24/7. So how would that change? So I tried to compare the air conditioning at a volume level. So right now, I just said we're paying $16 a month for our electricity. That covers everything, but let's just say all that electricity was for the air conditioning. This is the worst case scenario. All the air conditioning was for all of that $16 was for the air conditioning. So let's say we build a 1,600 square foot house. Right now we have a 600 square foot house. Let's just triple it. So let's say we built an 1,800 square foot house and we air condition the whole thing all the time, which we wouldn't do because we would put in mini splits and you wouldn't air condition the extra bedrooms. You would just close the doors and leave those air conditioned when nobody's here. But let's just say we air condition the whole thing, all 1,800 square feet, all summer long. We'd have triple the volume of space to air condition. So let's just say, 4 times, let's say our electricity bill went 4 times what it is now, well, that'd be $64 a month. That's going to add $48 a month to our expenses, which would take us from $14.88 to, let's just say, $15.50. So you can see the impact of having a big house or having a bigger house is not going to be super big. And other than that, water's going to stay the same because there's only 2 of us using water. Garbage, gas usage is going to stay the same. Everything else stays the same. So those are the only 2 things that would change if we had the exact same house we had in California. Maybe our expenses will go up $100 a month. They wouldn't go up that much, but let's just say $100 a month. So I'm not saying everybody can live on that. It just depends what kind of lifestyle you want to have. But we really feel that we are living the same lifestyle that we lived in the U.S. We are happier, we are less stressed, and we are totally comfortable, and we do it at a fifth of the cost that it costs us in the U.S. to live that same lifestyle. So for us, it really is a huge savings, and it is comparable.
It's so much more relaxing and calming. You just really can't put your finger on what it is here, but it's amazing.
Thanks everybody for watching this video. Thanks if you made it all the way to the end and are still with us. I know I didn't think anybody would watch the last video we did on cost of living all the way to the end, and a lot of people did. So thank you guys for sticking in there. And if you liked the video, give it a like. If you made it to the end and you haven't subscribed, you should hit that subscribe button because you're a hardcore. You need to get our subscribe to our channel. That helps us out. And never forget to live before you die.